Electronic Entertainment Expo in Los Angeles. We'll have the biggest titles in PC and console gaming, as well as the creative palettes behind them. The new Star Wars Episode 1 titles, Diablo 2, Quake 3, and Donkey Kong 64 are all here, as well as next-generation console systems, the Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, and Nintendo's new Dolphin system. Plus, we have a few surprises. So stick around. It's game time.
Excitement is everywhere. We're on the floor of the Electronic Entertainment Expo in Los Angeles, California, with a special edition of GameSpot TV.
Yes, this is E3. This is the one-time-a-year event where all the major players in the industry get together, show off their wares, see what the other guy has, and schmooze. Established by the Interactive Digital Software Association, E3 has become one of the most anticipated events on the game industry's calendar for the past 5 years.
E3 is the mecca of interactive entertainment. It's the trade show that once a year people from all over the world involved in the interactive entertainment, computer game, video game industry converge to see what's new, what's next.
Wow, what a show.
At this year's show, IDSA tallied over 2,000 PC and console titles, ranging from id Software's explosive Quake 3 Arena to Hasbro's family titles. Over 400 companies attended, and each one was eager to show off their latest creations.
We're launching today Planet of the Apes, which is the first time anybody's heard about this, and the reaction's been spectacular.
Spread throughout 5 huge floors, 2 levels, and a dozen or so meeting rooms, trying to cover all the games and events was no easy feat. There's a reason why this is a 3-day event. E3 is heaven on earth for gamers, but unfortunately it's a trade show, so if you're under 18, sorry.
Get away from me, you filthy animal, you freak!
But it's no ordinary trade show. E3 is known for its extravagant exhibits. Fox Interactive went all out to promote their new Planet of the Apes PC title.
Chasing humans, I think, has always been my most favorite. Yes, I like to run them down in the cornfields. Yes.
Promoting their console title, WCW Mayhem, EA Sports hired WCW wrestlers Diamond Dallas Page and Sting to do the talking for them. Eyes and ears were glued to the ring in the packed Electronic Arts booth. Several companies hired celebrities and professional athletes to sign autographs and promote their titles.
Of course I played Tomb Raider, and like every other hot-blooded male, I was in love with Lara.
But the biggest buzz came from the Nintendo booth, where they were showing the N64 Episode 1 racer from LucasArts. Nintendo did not hold back any punches and got the best spokesperson they could get. Well, it is definitely an honor to be with Mr. Jedi himself, Jake Lloyd, who plays Anakin Skywalker in the Episode 1 movie. How are you doing?
Good, how about you?
I'm doing pretty well myself. So what do you make of this entire event?
Pretty darn cool.
Now, in the movie, you ride the racer, and in the game, you're riding the racer as well. How would you compare the two experiences?
Well, in the film, my pod racer didn't move that much on the set, so I like this one a little bit better.
Hey, Adam, got any more questions?
E3 is also a place where you can meet some wonderful friends. If you're not doing anything after the show, how about you give me a buzz? But underneath the glitz and thundering music, companies at this year's E3 show were sensitive to the criticism spawned by the shooting at the Colorado high school. Lowenstein believes the industry knows how to handle its problems.
As an industry, we've made a commitment to see if there are things that we can do to restrain some of the more egregious advertising that promotes violence, and I think that's where our responsibility lies.
And E3 is not complete without the big three. Sony, Nintendo, and Sega were looking ahead towards year 2000. It seems that the console war is going to be hotter than ever. Each company will have new games, new technologies, and new machines. Sega's launching the first strike this September and feels confident it will dominate.
We made a lot of promises last year. We said last year we would have the retail support, the third-party support, and that we would bring forward our marketing programs and campaigns, and we delivered that. So I believe we've delivered our mission.
Hundreds of games and new products being introduced, E3 usually provides a glimpse to the future of electronic entertainment. And if this year's show is an indication, we're all along for an exciting, wild ride. definitely think, I probably would agree, that the big buzz of the show is coming from the console side with the next generation console systems. You have the US release of the Dreamcast, you have the PlayStation 2, and the recently announced codenamed Dolphin from Nintendo.
And we'll have more on that later. In the meantime, if you want more E3 news, go to GameSpot's website at e3news.com.
Coming up on GameSpot TV's E3 Special, we find the hottest PC titles on the show floor, including Battlezone 2, Quake 3, and of course, Vampire the Masquerade Redemption. TV here at E3 in Los Angeles. Now, Lauren, I was noticing there's a lot of PC games here that were here last year, like Black and White, but it seems the hot title is Diablo 2.
Yes, this is the year of the sequel.
Diablo 2 is a role-playing game.
Deus Ex is a first-person perspective, real-time 3D role-playing game.
The Sims is basically a real-time strategy game that occurs in the home.
Vampire the Masquerade is a 3D third-person RPG.
Right, ASHERON'S Call is a massive multiplayer online RPG.
Team Fortress 2 is a social multiplayer action game.
The coming years look to be quite interesting for PC gamers. From the hallowed halls of Ultima to the belligerent battalions of Battlezone 2 and on to the depths of Diablo 2, at this year's E3, it seems that sequelitis is alive and well and will be coming to a computer screen near you.
I think the way that I account for the number of sequels at this year's E3 is that someone's accounting for them. You know, I mean, it's an accounting maneuver.
I think there are always going to be lots of sequels, and that way we're kind of mimicking Hollywood a little bit. One of the games we've seen at Computer Gamer World that's really struck us is Oni. It's by Bungie Software, and it's a third-person perspective title, which means you're viewing the action from over the primary character's shoulder, and you're fighting against up to 4 or 5 other people at a time. It's like a multiplayer Quake, but Tomb Raider perspective.
Vampire from Activision, you know, has caught a lot of people by surprise. Looks really beautiful, has a very gothic sort of feel. Another interesting game is the Star Trek ARMADA game, which is the first real-time strategy game set in the Star Trek universe. And even though to some degree it's a very formulaic, you know, RTS game, it has enough kind of cool innovations and the great Star Trek license, you know, to make it kind of stand out in my mind.
LucasArts has their Star Wars games, and they both have splendid graphics.
Gamers can look forward to the changing PC environment with some long-awaited new titles that are sure to have them running to the store for computer upgrades.
And 3D graphics is just here with us to stay. It's never going away, right? So you're in these 3D worlds, but ultimately a lot of our controls that we have, our existing controls, keyboard, mice, and even joysticks to a large degree, were never really intended to deal with a 3D world. Right? So what you really are dealing with is you need new different ways to approach how you manipulate this character you have in this 3D world and ways to make movement easier and more intuitive.
With all this flash, what's happening to content and gameplay?
Since the level of graphical quality in games is universally high right now, the game manufacturers are having to really up their game content.
I think in the RPG world, people won't tolerate a game that's all flash and no content. So I think when you see all these great RPGs coming out, they're really more content-driven than a lot of the trends that have come by in the past. So the RPG trend is also a content trend, which is great.
And what can PC gamers expect from developers in the coming years?
Online gaming is back.
I think the biggest trend we're seeing right now is one that started a couple of years ago, but is really picking up steam, which is the online multiplayer gaming.
Well, I think the #1 trend that I've seen at this year's E3 in PC gaming is just really the emergence of online-only games. You just didn't have this variety in terms of genres and also this quality in terms of graphics and sort of sophistication in online-only games prior to this year's E3. So I think that it really is a hallmark of what's to come.
So it looks like PC gaming is heading steadfast into multiplayer and online gaming.
Now, we're going to have more about multiplayer gaming later on in the show. Now, if you want to send us any comments or questions, drop us an email or a Vmail at GameSpotTV@ZDTV.com.
And if you don't have a netcam, that's okay. Join us in our chat next Tuesday. We'll be giving one away.
Coming up on GameSpot TV's E3 Special, we have Star Wars Episode 1 Racer in our E3 intro pick. And we look to the future of PC gaming as we explore the state of online and multiplayer titles. Welcome back to GameSpot TV at E3 in Los Angeles. You know, I gotta say, it's quite remarkable having 1,900 games to choose from, but definitely the one that stood out for me was Soul Calibur for the Dreamcast.
That's a pretty good pick, Adam, and I have to say I'm in the same boat, but I would pick Donkey Kong 64 or a really close second with Ape Escape for the PlayStation. But far and away, the most hype landed on LucasArts with the Star Wars Episode 1 games. So naturally, we picked a Star Wars Episode 1 game as our E3 intro of the week.
And a big turnout here from all corners of the Outer Rim territories. I see the contestants are making their way out onto the starting grid.
There is the reigning champion of the Volta Classic and the crowd favorite, Sobuba. Power couplings are being activated. Our glorious host, Jabba the Hutt, has moved into the arena. Famous Gaz Gano.
It looks like the young human, the Anakin Skywalker.
I hope he has better luck this time. And they're off.
Star Wars Episode 1 game at this week's E3. It's Obi-Wan, and if you want to find out more about it, go to GameSpot.com.
Now, everything at E3 doesn't actually happen on the convention floor. For example, there was a group of renegade gamers that decided to set up shop across the street. As usual, the gathering of developers, also known as God, don't want to toe the line. First, they challenged the industry by giving more royalties to their software developers, and now they're making noise in their makeshift trailer park across the street from E3.
We're having a blast. The whole deal is not taking ourselves too seriously.
And I think it's more honest. Like, we don't have to put on a big show. Our big show is our technology.
Of course, the live music, scantily clad females, and beer didn't hurt.
It's a casual party. It's people who really are into the games as opposed to being in there selling themselves and selling their wares.
It's a place to get out after being overloaded with all this sensory overload.
All that matters are the games and the guys that make the games.
So what did God have to show for itself?
Nocturne is a horror game, first and foremost. We concentrate a lot on action and adventure, but horror is the main key.
The video game that we're making is Heavy Metal Fact 2.
Hey, let's not just do a game that is based on a movie. Let's take it further. Let's take it one step beyond. So the video game is actually the sequel to the movie.
Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. We grew up, we didn't kill people, we just sat in our bedrooms and drew pictures, and so that's where we're heading, back to soft porn, just like the Heavy Metal magazine.
We want to be kicked out and asked not to come back.
Now, don't be fooled. A lot of the games from Gathering developers were to be found here on the floor of E3.
And that is true. And you know that God is developing for the Dreamcast now with Max Payne coming out. But all of the new next-gen console systems are adding in that online component.
Now, of course, online gaming is really the strong suit of the PC, and a lot of the games here are either exclusively online or have a very large multiplayer component. And this might beg the question, are we looking at a permanent shift in the industry? Online and multiplayer gaming is here to stay and has made its presence known at this year's E3. This year's crop of titles are sure to change the way we look at online gaming. There are really three types of online games. There's the meta game, like Cave Dog's Boneyards.
In the case of our Total Annihilation Galactic War, we have a map of planets, and you and I would be battling for a planet. If I beat you and I win that planet, or several other players and I get up against another group of players and we win, so we take over that planet. But there's 75 planets in this map, and so we've got to go from planet to planet. Pretty soon, if we take over the whole map, then we win.
There's online role-playing, like the persistent world of the upcoming ASHERON'S Call.
Well, persistent world means that the world is there even when you're not. So just like when you go to bed, the real world keeps on going. ASHERON'S Call is the same way. It's a huge community. People are online literally 24 hours a day.
And then there are games that players can just jump right into, like Quake 3 or the upcoming Team Fortress 2. But really, what is the appeal of multiplayer and online play?
It's not about running around and killing a lot of people. It's about getting out there and having a lot of fun with your friends.
You have a whole different level of strategy and a whole different level of sort of, I don't know, glory. When you come to the aid of your team, when you come to the aid of your dying compatriot right when he's about to go down and you rescue him. I mean, that's something that you can't get in a single-player game and you can't get in an anonymous game where you're just basically everyone's an enemy.
Clearly, players want more from online and multiplayer gaming. But are companies going to give it to them? What is the future of online and multiplayer gaming?
It's really not games, it's online communities that we want to build.
I think persistence in characters is really important. Figuring out how to scale to larger and larger worlds is really important. It'd be really interesting with a huge number of servers around the internet to figure out how to have an economy that existed between the various servers. Those are some of the longer-term research areas that Valve and some of the other action gaming companies are looking at.
Online and multiplayer gaming is definitely moving towards more cooperative and customizable play. And more than ever, game companies are making it easier for everyone to get online. Coming up on GameSpot TV's E3 Special, we jump into the fray of console wars between Sega, Sony, and Nintendo. We look at the games, the machines, and the future of the next generation console systems. Welcome back to GameSpot TV here at E3 in Los Angeles. Now, Lauren, you've been covering the show for VideoGames.com. What's up with the consoles?
There is so much competition here between the console systems. You've got Nintendo with their announcement, PlayStation 2, of course, coming out, but the first one out of the gate is going to be the Dreamcast.
E3 is more than a showcase for Sega, Sony, and Nintendo. For the industry giants, E3 is a multi-billion-dollar battleground. Laid out side by side, the three biggest exhibits tried to outdo each other with displays, giveaways, and of course, games.
We're going to kick ass this year.
Sega of America's president, Bernie Stolar, backed his claim by having more than 40 Dreamcast titles in Sega's booth, ranging from House of the Dead 2 to Rally 2. Of course, not all are planned to be released in the U.S.
Dreamcast this year will deliver what we believe is not the next generation system, but a new way of playing, a new way of gaming. We're including a 56K modem in this system, which will evolve into a community of gaming.
Perhaps its own battle cry, Sony plays Jammer Lammy loud and proud toward Sega's booth.
We believe that there's still a lot of life in the current PlayStation for the years to come as well. But there are advancements in technology that we want to take advantage of every so often.
That advanced technology took shape in the form of the PlayStation 2, Sony's 128-bit game system due for launch in March 2000. Visitors had a chance to play a mock-up version of Gran Turismo. But between the three, the Hype Award has to go to the Nintendo booth. Besides the usual gaming stations and the massive Episode 1 games section, Nintendo also announced their plans for the next Nintendo game system. Nintendo, Sega, and Sony agree that games, not hardware, will dictate the winner of the console race. Nintendo also plans to stop the competition with Donkey Kong 64, the platform game with roots in the 16-bit era. Donkey Kong 64 will include all 5 original characters, huge levels, and graphic elements that, according to Nintendo, will further push the N64 processor's capabilities. The PlayStation did a little stomping of its own. Electronic Arts previewed WCW Mayhem the only way they knew how. Wrestlers Diamond Dallas Page and Sting gave it the usual endorsement. Milking the cash cow, Sony introduced Crash Team Racing for the PlayStation. The game allows players to race as various Crash characters in 4-player races, typical kart style. And Squaresoft did not disappoint the waiting crowd with a preview of the US Final Fantasy VIII for the PlayStation. As ported from the Japanese game, Squaresoft displayed the new environments, elements, and the seamless movie transitions found in Final Fantasy VIII.
We've always felt from day one, even with the current PlayStation, that software is king. Everything is about software. Technology is important, but it's only a means to deliver the compelling entertainment that you see in software.
E3 this year, I believe, has been Sega's best show ever.
Sega's lineup revealed enough to make skeptics double take. The Dreamcast titles, NFL 2000 and NBA 2000, gave gamers a preview of the dramatic transformation that video games are about to undergo. And Shenmue, the role-playing game for the Dreamcast, was finally shown at E3. According to Sega, Shenmue's depth, animation, and graphic sophistication could give Final Fantasy developers a run for their money. E3 observers think Shenmue could be a must-have title for the Dreamcast. But Nintendo pulled a fast one on Sega and Sony. In a press conference, the company announced its plans for the next-generation Nintendo system, codenamed Dolphin. It's due at the end of the year 2000.
We're going to use DVD instead of the ROM cartridges, which brought applause to everybody that heard the news.
Thanks to that announcement, new titles and new technologies at this year's show, gamers can look forward to another great year of video gaming. Next year's E3 should not be missed.
Nintendo's new system in development, codenamed Dolphin, should be available about the end of the year 2000. And of course, like all of the console systems, the next-gen console systems, they have a really strong online strategy plan. So it'll be interesting to see if they do actually show at next year's E3.
But if they do, we'll be sure to bring it to you. But that's it for this year's E3, and that's it for this episode of GameSpot TV.
So until next week,
bye.